Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We are continuing our reading of this radical feminist book. I skipped ahead a few chapters because she was going into more nuances of bad intimacy, how women fake it, and she was framing it as, the transactional aspect of how rad femmes see it, which it's a good thing to discuss, but personally, it's a bit redundant. And then she went on about body image, fat shaming, fat phobia, and I feel like that's a dead horse at this point. It's been the point has been labored so much that it's just not too much meat anymore to discuss. So I went ahead to this chapter, which was called Labors of Love, and it appears to be something that's got more meat on the bones for us to nibble on. Let's begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Heterosexuality is in trouble. Over the past decade, more straight women than ever before have chosen to delay marriage and partnership, exit unsatisfactory relationships, or forego them altogether. Birth rates have fallen off a precipice in developed nations that never bothered to imagine a strategy for supporting family life beyond shoveling women towards marriage and motherhood. Okay, so let's break this down. Delays in marriage, a lot of that I do think when I examine it. Now, I don't have data to back this up, but I think right in high school, they come in the colleges sometimes and they push you to go and take on a mass pile of debt. And a lot of the young boys, they're kind of taught now in America to sleep around a lot and to just have fun with girls in college. And that eventually when they get older and established, they'll have money. Some of the girls get passed around. They get a ruined reputation, and then they got all this mental trauma. And the type of men they pick get worse and worse and worse, and then they get burnt out on the idea of marriage. And more people see that pattern, and they think money first, love last. And then you have a whole group of women who get pregnant by men who are felons, complete bums who borrow their car, and have a bunch of baby mamas. And so they don't ever get married, but they get pregnant, right? And then she mentioned unsatisfactory relationships. I have been noticing as well that there's a lot of growing conversations now about the period of pregnancy and the first year after you have your child, how that really makes or breaks a relationship, how the man responds to the needs of the woman, and her lack of a support system also builds up resentment. Because we have so many broken homes in America, people move away from their parents, people put their grandparents in old folks' homes, so we don't have the networks to lighten the load, the mental load, where it's quite difficult with sleep deprivation and then tending to other kids and then being isolated and in poverty and not really having any mom friends. And social life is very hard when you're barely making it mentally through that time period. So if all you have is your husband to support you, and he's failing because he's not really built for that feminine role, then they usually want to leave once the kids are older because they got all these bad memories piled up in their mind. The dynamics of the relationships are changing. So in the past, men could just go to work, come home. You have grandma, great-grandma, aunties, cousins, tight-knit communities. Kids are able to play safely outside. There's less predators or gangbangers with stray bullets and, smugglers snatching kids. It was just, you don't have to worry about your kid running into a high homeless drug addict who's mumbling and pooping on themselves. That's like having your kid encounter a zombie. So the amount of danger that is present now puts a high in home invasions, carjackings. A lot of this creates a lot of stress on moms. The man's out there battling it out, but without the support system, the man has taken on, he has to take on more. So there's a rift where a woman gets a traditionally masculine man who maybe isn't as soft with the kids as liberals men are. And like, because some liberal men, if you watch them, they are a bit more effeminate and they're more softer towards the kids in terms of like what they're willing to take on. They don't see it as an attack on their masculinity, whereas a lot of red pill guys, and I've even seen some Salafi Muslims, they act like they're the dictator. They're gonna kick their shoes off when they get home. They're not even gonna pass the salt to their wife. They're not interested in changing diapers. This makes it very burdensome on the mom because she's not able to have a moment to decompress, right? She's constantly needed, and that's only temporary, right? But for some women, they had no idea how difficult their trial will be. So their mind racks up lists and lists against their husband, and if he's not focusing on helping her out, he sees it as trivial and easy. She starts thinking of an exit strategy. She starts thinking, how can I earn some money? Who can I go live with? I need to make some friends. I gotta get out of this relationship. Better just to get child support because he's not helping me anyway except for financial stuff. So if I can get my own place to live, have a job, the kids are a little bit older so they don't need me as much. It's like having him as a roommate so I don't really feel love and connection because how he's lacking me, like how he's lacking in helping out with the children and giving me a break shows he doesn't care and love about me or care about my mental health and spiritual well-being, and he doesn't think me having my own personal time is important, but he gets to go work out or go with his friends or do stuff easily while I'm stuck with the kids. So now I'm going to find a way out of this hell and I'm out. So I have been noticing these dialogues going on, and some of it you're like, oh man, I feel bad for you. Some of it you're like, you're being whiny. But I do notice, myself, my great grandma, my grandma and my mom are alive. None of them are really involved with the children, and nor do they call or really ask for photos and stuff like that. And my husband's family lives in Mexico, so they're not here. I'm doing it myself. So when I hear these women complaining and venting, you're like, oh, I get exactly what you mean. And some women, I'm not going to be angry at them for not being able to handle it. Some people are built different. I can't. Some people can handle, like, getting through cancer. Others, the whole time, they're like, I just want to be out of here. I don't want to go through this cancer treatment anymore. People handle grief differently, hunger differently. It's all, just our test and trial. So when they say exiting unsatisfactory relationships, the wrong thing to do is for these fake tradcons to say, oh, a man doesn't need to look to a woman's emotional needs. It's like, okay, then she's gonna leave. Because if look at her circumstance and ask yourself, how much misery can someone take? Okay? Is she feeling energized and rejuvenated and bonded to her husband, or is she completely drained and then he just humps her? She doesn't even get to finish herself, and now she's feeling totally depleted, and now she's like going down social media rabbit holes, and the feminists are like giving her talking points that sound way more empathetic than the Christians who are like, just do your duty and put out, and it's not his job to cater to your feelings and stuff. You're like, ooh, that's how you get pretty rugged women. So we have a lot of divorce rates, and I think that plays a huge role. And if we want to stop that, then we have to get men and women to communicate more. That doesn't mean make men eunuchs or make women so prone to constantly whine and not toughen up. But it does mean there needs to be communication, because the women in the past couldn't leave. Because if it's true, you ain't got no education, no money, no family, you're done. You can't leave. You're literally stuck. The true test of a relationship comes when the woman has money and when she can leave, but she stays. The man has done more work to keep her. When your woman is broke, uneducated, and has no safety net, it's easy to keep her because she ain't got nowhere else to go. So that doesn't mean you're a good man. The real test is if she can get a good job, can get a different man, and has like her parents' house she can go to or whatever, but she still stays with you because you treat her right. That shows that you actually, know how to keep a woman. It's interesting. It's really quite interesting. Or forego them altogether. Birth rates have fallen off a precipice in developed nations that never be bothered to imagine a strategy for supporting family life beyond shoveling women towards marriage and motherhood. I don't think we shovel people towards marriage anymore. I think they're shoveled towards adult content. I think that's what women are more pushed towards now. Abortion and selfishness and adult content. I saw a funny post that said OnlyFans hit the women's community like crack hit the black communities. Totally decimated it, right? The crack epidemic, which my mom was a crack addict, women got destroyed by that. But also my mom was a escort, stripper, prostitute. So she got hit by both in her generation, unfortunately. But I don't think we push marriage as much anymore. I really don't. Religious people do, but secular liberal atheists, careerism is first. And motherhood, I think abortion on average is pushed way more and minimized and trivialized. I really do feel that. Abortion is talked about by the atheists. It's like, to them, it's like clipping your toenails. They don't feel any empathy, but they also censor graphic images of what abortions look like, and they viciously attack pro-life people. So that's intense. Around the world, more and more women are refusing to be shoveled en masse, walk out from the traditional heteronormative couple form. So here, what do we see? Because remember, she don't like religious people. She uses Muslims as a token, and totally, she's real quiet about how Islam is for heterosexuals, right? As in being queer and bisexual and homosexual is a sin. But she totally ignores that and just attacks, like, she will not attack black Christians, but she only attacks white straight males who are Christian. And remember, if you go back in other videos, you see her deliberately say that. You're like, you're crazy, because there's a large black Christian community in the United States, but she ignores that conveniently. But she's saying, walk out from the traditional nuclear family that's religious. And yet they'll say they're not here to attack the nuclear family. And then when religious people point out the Rainbow Mafia is attacking the traditional family, they say, no, we're not. But here in this book, you see this rat fam, who's part of the Rainbow Mafia, is quite openly saying, in this very passive-aggressive way, and yet deliberate way in past episodes, that yes, it's a good thing to her, she thinks, that this is being destroyed. Right? Babies don't come from buttholes, as Owen Benjamin say. So, and surrogacy is evil. Sorry, I don't think surrogacy is a good thing. The fact that two men can buy a baby and pay a woman to grow their baby like a doll, and they can deny that baby being able to breastfeed from its mother, the mother sells the baby, right? That's a very evil thing. So slavery is illegal, and slavery, you buy human beings. Surrogacy, you're buying a human being. You know, you're literally renting out a womb, worse than a cow. You know, it's really, you'll see feminists split on surrogacy issues. But It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So she seems proud that the birth rate has plummeted, and I find that to be quite sad. With all its dangers and disappointments. So she says that the traditional way of women being heterosexual is dangerous. The man and husband with the child is dangerous, and it's disappointing. You see what she's done there? The social shockwaves. Oh, go look up the domestic violence rate and divorce rate of lesbians while you're at it. And start looking into how many... Okay, I can't go too deep on YouTube. The social shockwaves of that walkout will be felt for generations to come. Why is this happening? Very large question. It could go layer upon layer upon layer. You have the mainstream academic view, and then you have the religious views from the Christians and Muslims on why it's happening. But broken homes, also, I think war pushes that as well. And I think chemicals in the food and water supply and the side effects, the changes on the brain due to mass amounts of forced medications, right? I think that has a role to play. So pills, just loading people up on pills, they're like these pill popping guinea pigs. The side effects that does on your reproductive health, on your what it does to changing your brain patterns, all that, your liver function, the pollution in the air, and the monster that is Hollywood, that pushes everything evil, and the adult entertainment industry and those who are funding it. Who's funding the servers, right, of all this free adult content? Who owns that? Who are the CEOs of the top adult content creators, right? How are they making money? And how are they paying for all the space, like that server space, to host all that free content? Why would you want all that up? It literally destroys men and alienates women and makes them worse. But again, liberal atheists think, sex, rock and roll, and drugs is the best form of society. They love wine. Give a liberal some Merlot and they're like, it's like, come here, there you go. They're little alcoholics. They just can't stop talking about wine. There's one simple reason. Yes, there are complex, intricate socioeconomic factors behind this sea change in sexual politics, but it comes down to this. A great many millions of straight women are unable to find suitable romantic partners who treat them decently, are unwilling to build their lives around men who don't. Okay, so suitable romantic partners, the desire to be treated decently, unwilling to build their lives around men. Okay, I want you to think about what I shared on the community tab yesterday from Explore With Us. A father shanked his wife and his children. Women have to know a man can destroy their family. Okay? A man can destroy what you have built. You need to have the capacity to walk away from evil and build your own life. But you must know that a man is to add to your life and to build it better. If the man is not adding to your life in a way that is better and building you stronger, he is not an asset. Now, if he goes away, it should sting a bit, but it should not annihilate you, right? You must survive, no matter what. But to trivialize the importance of men, to say don't focus on them, leads to women picking worse men, right? A man should be an asset, and he should be able to build with you, as in make you have a nice house. Okay, you need him to do physical labor. Like, let's say I want to buy a cow. I want that man to be able to help me take care of that cow. I want him to build a fence. I want him to take it to the vet, whatever we need to do. I don't know. I want him to be able to handle that. I want to be able to build my tribe and I need my chief. And I want to delegate, but I also know my role, and I want him to take the leadership role. And I want him to make everything wonderful. I want him to make my little nest, my utopia, and to be the walls, the roof, while I decorate the interior. A man is so important because the lack of a man creates much more strife. Single mothers, a lot of them on antidepressants and have to resort to sex work. So they'll use men for prostitution. But then they don't want to marry a man who they just have to occasionally cook for and have intimacy with. But they'll let themselves be paid for intimacy, but they don't want to just have a husband who loves them. They seem to want to just be isolated and alone. And hermitage, monasticism, monkhood is only for the truly spiritual people. Not everyone can do that. Islam does not require people to do that. To go to the mountains and isolate yourself. I kind of am like that. I'm not a very social person anymore. But not everyone can handle being with just their thoughts. They can't. If that was true, solitary confinement wouldn't be a sense of torture. A man will never be the end-all be-all, but he should be able to add to your all. A king needs a queen. Adam and Eve were created together. It was Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Adam being alone, if that would have been sufficient, Allah would never have created Eve. And Eve must have been, very beautiful if you think about it. The very first woman. Both of them in the garden together. In love. In a totally different universe. She didn't have to compete with any other women. They just had each other. It's amazing. It's amazing. They built their life together. They were totally involved with each other. It's not that straight women and girls have given up on love altogether. But they are now freer, okay, notice this, freer than ever before to set their own conditions for what they will and will not accept in relationships with men, and freer to walk away if conditions are not met. Now, standards is important. I think this is very true. Women in the past, like I said, no access to education, extreme poverty, they're not going to be able to leave. They were not able to negotiate what they want in a marriage. But now women can. I don't think that's a bad thing, because you're okay to have standards. A man can have standards. It doesn't make him insecure. It doesn't make him evil. If he says, I'd like a low body count woman who didn't prostitute herself and who's trying to be spiritually good and wants to be a mom and is willing to put the career on hold for a while, I want that. That's a good thing. He's allowed to have that. If a woman says, I don't want a guy who watches pornography, I don't want a guy who drinks and uses drugs, I don't want a guy who clubs, I don't want a guy in massive debt, I don't want a broke man, I don't want someone who's a gangbanger or has a criminal record, right? She's allowed to have her standards in those conditions, right? So you're free to walk away, but freedom comes with responsibility. You gotta be careful. You gotta make better choices. Love is political. I've spent the past decade of my life navigating men's messed up relationship to sex, love, and status. I've watched men with money, fame, and power treat women and girls as interchangeable F-toys. I mean, there are some men who do see women as that. No doubt about it. I have watched women and girls get relentlessly devastated in relationships with men who don't feel powerful enough. I've watched men assume that along with success comes an all-access pass to the hearts and bodies of beautiful women. I mean, the women offer themselves. Don't make it right. But you have to hold those women accountable. It's like moss to a flame. Resources. Look at Biggie Smalls. He's so ugly and bad, but he had money, and he was like pulling, very beautiful black Barbies, and you're like, wow, they want the money, safety, security, food, health insurance, So it's, yes, that's why you gotta be so careful, man. You gotta be so careful who you pick, because a man with money is like a double-edged sword. I have watched successful, confident, straight women be crushed by their inability to connect with men. Now, what I'd argue is a little bit of a tough truth. You want to connect, but you have to think, are the children being taken care of? The children, right? You can be a successful woman, truly confident. It hurts when you don't connect with the man. But what state are you at in a relationship? That's very important. If you start to disconnect, try. But have other hobbies as well. But try to connect as best you can before you have kids. Because when you have children, that's where you'll get more detached. So you need to have a tight relationship. I think that's why it's important to pick a man who likes you. Like, a lot of women will go for the guy who ignores them, hates them almost. He's a bad boy, right? He's kind of indifferent towards you, and you're constantly clinging to this desire that one day he'll want you as much as you want, but then you also don't want him to want you. It's like, make up your mind, lunatic. Because there's a lot of very simpish men who will totally, I don't want to say worship the ground you walk on, because that's shirk, but they'll like you, but those women get grossed out by them. But then they complain they can't connect. The guy who's desperate for your attention, he wants you, he'll connect with you. Hell, he'll do anything to be your partner, but you don't want him, and you want the jock who's ignoring you, and you just can't. I can't kiss a cobra and think one day that it won't bite me. You have to look at the nature of it, right? I can't treat a Clydesdale the same as an Arabian horse. I cannot expect a zebra to run as fast as an Arabian. You gotta pick what you can get, and you gotta pick good, but you won't be able to connect with every man. And measuring that connectedness is important. How much do you need to get by? And the more you connect, the more it's gonna hurt if he cheats on you. Remember that. You invest a ton of energy trying to bond your soul to that guy, and then he gets another woman. Your rage of jealousy is gonna go off the charts. So you gotta pull the reins in a little bit. A little disconnection goes a long way. I have watched women in committed relationships staggering under the weight of emotional and domestic labor that partnership with men so often involves. Okay, so let's look at this. Domestic labor, the emotional weight. Okay. If you're a lesbo, bisexual, you're still gonna have domestic labor. Okay? I have my grandma's dearest friend who passed away, Linda was her name. She was a hoarder. Her domestic labor was minimum because she was a hoarder and quite dirty. Okay? Her house was hoarded. Okay? Now, she ain't got no chores because she just lets dishes pile up. It's a disaster. Bugs. It's quite sad. And, that's not healthy, fam. You can be a minimalist. Do spring cleaning. Right? Have the things you need, but make sure you're rotating and tidying up. And you need to find a way to enhance your chores. Right? If you got on a farm, you can have your headphones in or one headphone in so you can still hear while cleaning your chicken coop. You have the ability to use your smartphone to entertain you as you do your chores. Have a conversation with somebody, or read heavy duty books so that you got things to think about while you're going. Have a notebook and a pen in your pocket and write down some of your ideas, and then journal that or write some poetry around it. Do a blog post. There's so many ways to enhance the domestic labor, and it's okay if you need to lighten up loads, right? When your kids are small and they're tiny, eat off paper plates for a while just to lighten the dish load. Eat with chopsticks. I don't know. There's things you can do. Okay? Meal prep. Make a big lasagna, then make a casserole, and then put them bad boys in the freezer. They're there ready for you. Label them when they're made, right? And then those days, pull that out, learn more soups. There's so many things you can do to cut down on labor. But also, even if your job is going to have labor. You're going to have labor in life. We're here to labor. It's hard. But it's something we cannot escape. We cannot. The weight of the emotions. If you're picking a man who's constantly agitating you and causing stress, you need to be careful. You want a guy who's peaceful or neutral, that you rarely argue with. Talking too much makes you more emotional because the man is not going to reciprocate you. He ain't gay. Gay men talk. Look at Destiny. Okay, Destiny and Vosh. They talk. They'll argue with women all day. A man who's more silent and stoic, he's not going to be this emotional queen. It's just not who he is. Talk to him about what he likes. It's not going to be what you like most of the time. But you're just okay, how was your workout? And then he wants to talk about protein, or he wants to talk about some supplements, or he wants to talk about how many reps he did. You just, okay. Some men talk about cars a lot. You're just He don't want to hear your gossipy stuff. He doesn't want to hear, that you like kittens with pink roses. Or you found, look at these shoes. He don't care. He ain't gay. You can't treat him like a gay man. You just can't. You have to know how to control your emotions, when to open up, and when to just keep it back. But too much whining on a man breaks him down. You don't want to cause him panic or stress, you're always bitching, you're always crying. You gotta kind of stonewall sometimes a little bit. If you're always oh, I'm breaking down, I'm having a panic attack, I'm having anxiety, oh, I'm an emotional wreck, oh, Tiffany told me this, and I want that, and I don't have it. It's oh my gosh, he's gonna be woman, I gotta go out. You're gonna drive him to drink. Be careful. Be careful. Love is political, and new politics of love is essential if there's to be any chance of salvaging anything precious out of the socio-political wreckage of straight sexuality, especially for women who are unwilling, more than ever, to compromise their own power for a man's love. Okay, compromise their own power for a man's love. That's an interesting statement. Compromising your power. The power of the purse, the power of being able to walk away whenever you want. You set some power aside because you know that you're not competing directly against your mate. Don't see your mate as an enemy. You chose that person. And the quality of the man you chose reflects your value. Reflects you. And people judge a man by the type of woman he has. If you're like Adam 22, who chose a woman who he passes around, and she chose a man who, is so gross and hedonistic, both of them are bad reflections of each other. Two germs sticking together. if you feel like you're compromising too much of your own power, you have the wrong one. You have the wrong one. But life is compromise. Relationships, you compromise. Okay? You have to be able to admit when you're wrong, and he's going to compromise things for you. You know? You give and take. Truly is that way. But you don't want to give up too much. Then you feel broken. And then when the relationship fails, you obsess more over him and you hate him to the point where you want him dead. And that evil inside of you will hurt you. If you give too much and he gives back so little, you break up, you'll hate him for years. And some women will want revenge and they'll get it. There's a lot of women in prison right now who got their revenge. Alright? So you gotta be careful how much you compromise. But no, what's the end goal? What's your goal? What's your goal in life? What do you want? There'll be compromise. And there's compromise in business, in everything. Compromises must happen. That's how treaties are formed and wars are ended. You're gonna compromise in your relationships. It took me a long time to understand that pain and self-denial were not the price I had to pay to be loved. In fact, in my own life, again and again, I've had to make the choice between being seen as girlfriend material and my dedication to my writing work, and that choice has been as painful as it has been obvious. There was never a part of me that considered shrinking my ambition to avoid threatening the men in my life. Okay, so shrinking your ambition to avoid threatening your man. Your man being threatened by your ambition. Here's something interesting. My very first love, who I moved in with when I was 16, right? And he was out of high school, so technically the relationship shouldn't have even been allowed to happen, technically, right? He was saving up to buy a BMW M3. I was saving up my money to buy a blue-nosed pit bull that I eventually got, which cost thousands of dollars. His name was Octavius. I was competing with him in my own head on success. I didn't want a fancy car. I'm not into cars. But he was succeeding in getting money towards achieving his goal, and I wanted to get towards my goal. When you're competing too much in ambition with your own man in your own world, and it doesn't feel good. There's something about men and their cars, and I don't think I'm the only woman who's thought this. But if your life as a woman, like, you don't have a whole bunch of finances, and then your man is like stacking money, he's getting nicer clothes, and he's not exactly sharing with you that wealth, and he's getting a nicer car. He's leveling up while you're kind of staying stagnant with no education. Like, I wasn't married to him, so he can't call me a housewife. But when I went to go work in a fancy hotel, he didn't want me to go work in that fancy restaurant hotel. He kind of just wanted to keep me at home, and I literally stayed in a room basically all day and all night. He wouldn't let me walk around. I wasn't allowed to go out with friends. For a long time, he didn't want me to work. I basically dropped out of high school to be with him, so I wasn't in high school, so I gave up literally everything. So I had no way of competing with him. And I see that as he probably was the type who doesn't want anyone to compete with his wealth. Because he literally feared, made it slip once that, like, that I was going to meet some man there. It was a very fancy, rich, touristy hotel where a lot of wealthy men go. And I just wanted the cool resume opportunity. I ended up getting a job there anyways. But he did cause me to lose it one day because he went to get out drunk and didn't take me to work. And the shift starts at 5 a.m. So I couldn't afford a taxi there. It was like $60. And $60 back. That's $120 a day. Well, that would be all my earnings for the day. So he ended up causing me to lose the job, which was very sad. But I think she has a point here that there are some men that do not know. They have to be the trophy. And if you compete in resources, they feel like they're going to get laughed at. It's not because they want to be the provider and cater to you and help you to succeed. They actually want to, it's like a form of control. It's not a form of love. And that is very interesting. It's a very true thing. I had to live it. So I don't have that now. Alhamdulillah. I have a good husband. The father of my children. So, subhanAllah, I don't have to worry about that. His success is our success. My success is our success. We don't compete with each other in this way. But there are some people who end up like doing that. I think if you talk to some people in your life, they've had some type of like weird instance of that. It's strange. I knew what that would cost. I also knew that I was lucky to get to make that choice. To get to choose my freedom at the expense of a man's undependable love. That's an interesting point. Love isn't, it's not guaranteed. It can leave any time. There's a lot of women in the world who could snatch him away. Freedom is important, right? The dog that is in the kennel is forced to be in the kennel. The test comes when you let your dog off the leash in the mountains. If you treated that dog well, it'll stay right by you. It'll protect you. Treat that dog bad, he's out of here. He's leaving. I'm not comparing women to dogs. I'm just saying that, like, if you have a parrot, obviously, you know, if you have an aviary, they'll come to you. Pigeons, they come back home. Ravens, they're gonna come back home. They will come back to you. Some birds, they're just gonna be like, I'm gonna do what I want. Chickens, you let them out, nighttime, they're gonna come back, climb up in the tree, try to be safe in the chicken coop. Ducks as well, geese, but turkeys. But there are some species of birds, they're gonna leave no matter what, if they get the chance. But there are some cows even, they're not just all gonna run away. Some will stick around because they want to stay where the food is, because you treat them well, you know. And the cow that escapes the factory farm truck, he don't want to be there, you know. But the cow in the Swiss mountains with a bell around its neck comes back down at the yodeling. It's fascinating. Yodel. Here comes all the cows. They know it's time to come back home and be gathered. So a woman's love, like, you know she loves you if she's got the ability to leave but stays. If a woman is trapped, it's no guarantee she loves you. So trapping her isn't going to prevent her love from going away. You know? But too much freedom, she can get lost and basically make a mistake. So there's a nuance there. My grandmother didn't. A lot of people still don't. But choice is not the same as control. Oh, I just mentioned that. Yeah. That's very true. Hard for some men to see that. They think the more they can deny a woman, that they can hide and shield her from everything. You don't want to expose her to too much. Like, I think it's very dumb for couples to go to clubs together. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're exposing her to men that can slip her a note. Like, what is wrong with you? You know? You just gotta be careful. It's like you don't take somebody to a place where they could be stolen. Okay, let me give you an example. I think couples should keep their social media separate, right? Tra Rags, the comedian, who's quite hilarious, black guy, who he makes a lot of funny skits. He just did one the other day where it says the fear of every guy when they announce they're a woman or something. And basically, she was like, why don't you put me on your IG? Why don't you claim me? Why don't you show people that I'm yours? I'm summarizing the skit. And he first doesn't want to, then he does. And then suddenly, a bunch of men are outside like, we want to hit. We want to hit. Let us hit. And they're trying to like get and break in his house. And he's horrified, right? And then one guy gets in and he's like, I want your woman. And he's like more scary and intimidating. And he's like, what? And he's like, I want your woman. And then he goes over to his woman and like starts doing stuff with her in front. And he's like, what are you doing? And it just encapsulates, like, it's just like every man's fear. It's like you expose your woman, who your woman is. All the men are flocking to her now. Right? And then one will be dominant and claim her and she'll go with them. Right? So, it's such a funny skit. You know? Because it's like, it's cool because it's from the male perspective. And, you know, I get that. I really get that. And it's funny because the degenerate Pearly thinks she tells men to cheat. She did a horrible tweet, by the way, yesterday that said it's not a big deal if your husband cheats on you with a stripper. I'm going to post that on my blog. Total degeneracy. But then remember the tweet I shared with you not too long ago where she said, I can't let these crazy women know who my man is because they're going to try to cheat with them. So isn't that funny? She wants you as a woman to accept cheating from your man, and she'll promote cheating while saying she doesn't. But she literally does with her words, through implication. And yet, she doesn't want to announce who her man is, because people who hate her are going to be like, we're going to get some revenge on you, and we're going to go after your man. Right? So these beautiful women who she's made enemies of, they're going to be like, let's be vindictive and let's get at this guy. You know, hundreds of like OF women pushing on this guy, tempting him, right? So if you notice how for both men and women, there is that angle. But again, the one who stays loyal is the champion. It's easy to stay loyal when you don't have the opportunity. That's why Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, is such a good example. He had the opportunity and resisted and feared Allah. You know he's a good man. But the man who's alone with you on the island, obviously he's going to stay loyal. There's no other options. A man is truly tested when he has the opportunity to cheat, but doesn't. And when he has the opportunity to cheat on you with a beautiful woman. Reminds me of the Odyssey. Homer's the Iliad and the Odyssey. You know, where basically the main character, his wife is resisting suitors and she won't do anything until she knows Odysseus is dead. And Odysseus was trapped on an island with Calypso, who was a goddess in that mythology, and she was beautiful, but he still wanted his wife. He didn't want to be with the goddess, who was just beautiful and having the best intimacy, and she's taking care of him, and he's relaxing in luxury. He still wanted his wife, and he wanted to find a way to get home to his wife, his immortal wife. And she wants him, and she doesn't really know he's dead. She don't know if he's dead, but she's waiting for him, right? And these suitors are coming like, I want to marry you, and she's like, no. And they're causing chaos in his home. And his son is there, like, all these men want to marry my mom, but she keeps holding out for my dad, right? It's fascinating when you look at it, you know, how when you are free and you remain pure and good, you have proven yourself. If you're hidden, that's good. You're avoiding temptation, which is admirable. You avoid free mixing. You avoid the opportunity. MashaAllah. But I have a high degree of respect for the men and women when they are tempted and they refuse shaitan. And that's pretty cool, you know? So when she mentions that choice is not the same as control, some men think the more control, the more is guaranteed. When someone wants to cheat on you, the weasel will try to find its way out of the... Well, actually, the weasel will find its way under the fence. You'd be surprised the ingenuity, the quickness now with how adultery can happen, especially with social media and apps. Handsome neighbor. If someone's hell-bent on cheating on you, there's a will, there's a way. They'll find the way. But if someone really cares for you, they avoid putting themselves in that position. And if they are accidentally put in that position, they're going to fear Allah and not ruin themselves. And hopefully they'll surround themselves by good friends and family who can push them in the right direction. Very interesting section. We've gone into a lot here. So let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to support the channel, it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.